tomorrow the president is going to speak on Capitol Hill. Is he going to address his predecessor's role in the riot?
Yes, and let me give you a little more preview of that. In addition, and I know I noted this yesterday, but I think it's important for people, so let me briefly reiterate. The president is going to speak to the truth of what happened, not the lies that some have spread since, and the peril it posed to the rule of law and our system of democratic governance. He will also speak to the work we still need to do to secure and strengthen our democracy and our institutions, to reject the hatred and lies we saw on January 6th, and to unite our country. I'd also note that President Biden has been clear-eyed about the threat the former president represents to our democracy, and how the former president constantly works to undermine basic American values and rule of law. And President Biden has, of course, spoken repeatedly about how the former president abused his office, undermined the Constitution, and ignored his oath to the American people in an effort to amass more power for himself and his allies. He sees January 6th as a tragic culmination of what those 4 years under President Trump did to our country, and they reflected the importance to the president of winning what he has called many times, and you've heard him call many times, the battle for the soul of our nation. So just as you heard him say on January 6th of last year, I would expect that President Biden will lay out the significance of what happened at the Capitol and the singular responsibility President Trump has for the chaos and carnage that we saw, and he will forcibly push back on the lies spread by the former president in an attempt to mislead the American people and his own supporters, as well as distract from his role in what happened. So he will, of course, speak to the moment, to the importance in history of the peaceful transfer of power, of what we need to do to protect our own democracy and be forward-looking, but he will also reflect on the role his predecessor had.
Will they call Donald Trump out by name?
We'll see. We're finalizing the speech, but I think people will know who he's referring to.
And so next week, I know we've got these 3 tracks of talks with Russia.
Yeah.
One is U.S.-Russia, one is NATO-Russia, another is broader European security talks. For the U.S.-Russia talks, is there scope, in terms of what the agenda looks like? What are the specific areas you want to focus on?
Sure, that's exactly right. There are 3 sets of talks next week. They start on the 10th in Geneva. Those will be led by Deputy Secretary Sherman. Then there's the 12th in Brussels, the NATO-Russia Council, and then the 13th in Vienna, which is the OSCE, which will start then will be represented by our ambassador to the OSCE, Mike Carpenter. So let me give you a preview, as you just asked, for what to expect. Russia has of course raised, as you've seen them raise publicly, they've also raised privately, the issue of European security. Let's be clear, over the past 2 decades, it is Russia that has invaded 2 neighboring countries, interfered in many other elections, used chemical weapons to attempt assassinations on foreign soil, and violated international arms control agreements. We and our allies will be raising those issues and other issues with Russia in the days and weeks ahead, and certainly as a part of these talks. And of course, we cannot forget that there is an ongoing Russian military occupation in Ukraine. In addition to the 3 meetings next week, we will continue to actively support progress on the Minsk Accords to resolve the current conflict in the Donbass. There have been a number of proposals, of course, that Russia has already published or put out there, advocated for. President Biden has made clear that we can make progress on some issues while others are not viable. We're not responding to them point by point, and I don't expect we will in these negotiations because, in our experience, you don't make actual progress by negotiating in public, and also because many of the proposals don't merit such a response. But Russia is very familiar with our positions, which are grounded in the fundamental principles of European security they once agreed to, including that borders cannot be redrawn by force, and countries have the sovereign right to determine with whom they associate. Finally, we don't know what next week's conversations will bring, but our approach to the discussions will be pragmatic, results-oriented, and we believe there are areas we can make progress on with Moscow, make progress on if they come to the table ready to do that. And obviously, that's the nature of diplomacy.